So yesterday, everything was dropped for Disney+. The day before, we also had a huge crap ton of news for one particular franchise, for the untitled Spider-Man 3. The casting announcements are as follows, in case you didn't know. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, reprising his role from Spider-Man 2 from 2004. Kirsten Dunst reprising her role as Mary Jane Watson from the Sam Raimi trilogy. Andrew Garfield reprising his role as Peter Parker Spider-Man from the Amazing Spider-Man film franchise. Charlie Cox, we just talked about this, by the way, with Daredevil, reportedly signing on as the titular character to join this movie franchise, either as a way to maybe get his own series going or to set up his own film franchise. But apparently Charlie Cox is coming to play in the Spider-Man pool, the Netflix actor. So that's very exciting, especially since we just talked about this last week. Emma Stone has expressed interest in returning as Gwen Stacy from the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, depending on the state of her pregnancy. And, of course, Tobey Maguire, the OG Spider-Man from the Sam Raimi trilogy, while not confirmed as of this video, he is most likely deep in negotiations talking with Sony and Marvel to see what they could do to pull him out. Personally, I think it would be career suicide if he didn't join this at this point, and probably this would be a really great way for him to get bigger movie roles. Again, you know, like Seabiscuit. That being said, there is an interesting angle to all of this crazy Spider-Man news. The fact that we basically are getting a Spider-Verse movie in live action, folks. It's pretty remarkable, and I'm thrilled that this is happening. But there are actually people out there in the fandom and the internet and Twitter that are complaining about this movie. They're saying that Tom Holland, obviously the central star of the Spider-Man movie, deserves to have his own solo story without all of these team-up scenarios and all these extra characters. And Tom Holland always has a mentor, and he's always teaming up with people, and he deserves his own spotlight because he's a really good actor, which is true. He is a very good actor. But to all of that criticism that they're not doing him justice, shut up. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Your opinion is incredibly invalid, and it's frustrating that you are giving our fandom community a terrible rep. And let me explain why. Spider-Man is very similar to the Batman film franchise and the Superman film franchise. And I'm talking about overall film product, not just specific universes here. Spider-Man is currently on its third iteration in its overall film franchise. Batman is currently on its fourth film iteration, eventually going into 5 with Robert Pattinson. And Superman is also at, like, technically 2.5. Superman Returns, I'm counting as the half. These franchises have already told different stories. You had Batman that played in a much more colorful universe with the Tim Burton / Joel Schumacher stuff, which is technically still the same universe. And then you also had the Dark Knight franchise, where it was a much more grounded Batman and it was that specific story. So now they're telling the story of this Dark Knight Returns Batman that clearly lives in a world with Superman where he's spooked. And you have, in comparison with Superman, you had Christopher Reeve, who is the iconic Superman actor, in my opinion, and in many people's opinions. It's a very bright 70s colorful world. Even though the storytelling kind of went on a decline, it's still very colorful, as opposed to Man of Steel, where it's a much more similar to our current Batman, grounded in the reality of what would this alien god do if he actually was on our planet. So it's a much darker tone, and I understand that that's not as well received compared to the original, but it is still a different take. All of these Batman stories are different takes on the character. Spider-Man, not so much all different takes. You had Tobey Maguire, who is a phenomenal Peter Parker. I don't think anyone would deny that. In his Spider-Man universe, you have Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, who is admittedly a good Spider-Man, maybe a so-so Peter Parker. Obviously, we're going down to opinion-based things here. But those two universes are very similar in the way of their storytelling, with multiple villains, especially comparing Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Green Goblin and Electro and Rhino to Spider-Man 3 with New Goblin and Venom and Sandman. Those are all very similar. as opposed to the current Spider-Man with Tom Holland, where it is vastly different storytelling, because this is a Peter Parker Spider-Man that lives in a world of other Marvel heroes, that has other people to look up to, as opposed to the previous two Spider-Man. He's not learning on his own. He has the benefit of looking up to Avengers, such as Iron Man and Captain America and Doctor Strange now, and having Nick Fury, and living in this world where he has role models to look up to, as opposed to being the only hero in his world. Spidey is better when he's working with friends, when he's learning from other heroes. You can see the growth of this high school student becoming a full-fledged superhero. And cinematically, it's much more engaging to tell as a story when you have your titular character playing across all these other fun, colorful characters. Not to disrespect anything that Sam Raimi did or Mark Webb did with their previous franchises, but it's kind of cinematically boring. And directors and audience goers don't necessarily want stories that have already been told. If you just had your current Tom Holland Spider-Man franchise doing the exact same thing that the previous two did, where it's just solo story with very minimal team-up points, it would not work because it had already been done twice before. This is a totally different way of approaching Spider-Man. Have him play with all these other characters. Now we're taking it to the nth degree by having everything Spider-Man film movie ever. And especially Spider-Man, with this third film in particular, Sony's going to take the reins of the character back eventually. It's not, this Marvel Studios Sony deal is not going to go on forever. Sony's going to take back the character, and Sony's going to implement Spider-Man into their own Marvel universe of characters, as they have put for their title. They're going to integrate him into Venom and Morbius and all these other characters and have their own thing, as they should. Spider-Man has the best gallery of characters in all of Marvel, except maybe the X-Men, in my opinion. And when it's done, MCU will go back to handling their own stuff. And clearly, after yesterday, they have plenty of properties to work with. But in Kevin Feige's mind, he sees this as potentially the last opportunity to work with arguably the best Marvel character, hero-wise, in the entire character pool. So he's going out with a bang. Now, this movie does not exist, in my opinion, without the Into the Spider-Verse film that Sony put together. So Sony actually has a huge credit for helping create what is going to be this live-action Spider-Verse movie. And we have to, thank Into the Spider-Verse for giving us this. But without that, we don't have this upcoming movie, and Kevin Feige is going all in, as he should. This is Spider-Man Endgame. It's his last shot with Peter Parker. Let's make it count. And I am completely here for it. And the fact that there is even a small fandom pocket out there that wishes that Tom Holland was able to shine on his own as Spider-Man, he will get to. He is not going to walk away from the Spider-Man franchise after this third film. He will have plenty of opportunities to be a part of his own story-told universe. And plus, Tom Holland is the happiest guy on the planet. He's one of two people that are the luckiest people in 2020. Him and Patrick Mahomes. Tom Holland is working with the best of the best of the best. Everyone wants to come and play the MCU. He is learning from everyone as an actor, as well as the character of Peter Parker, learning from all these heroes. He's not complaining about any of this, so you shouldn't either. Plain and simple. It will be released on December 17th, 2021. There is currently talks of a fourth Spider-Man film. I would not be surprised if maybe the Spider-Man 3 kind of leads into Spider-Man 4 the same way Infinity War did for Endgame. And like I said, this is Spider-Man Endgame. It takes everything that's gone on in the overall Spider-Man film franchise from before, and it makes it not worthless, which is great. I was upset after investing 4 years into the Amazing Spider-Man franchise to just have it dead in the water after setting up a Sinister Six plot line and setting up other potential outlets for characters within the Sony universe, if you will. And now it makes all of it worthwhile. You don't have to have an origin story for Doc Ock in this movie because he has an entire movie devoted to him. You don't need an origin story for Electro because you have an entire origin story devoted to him. This is the best way to tell a Sinister Six story and not have to spend endless amounts of dialogue setting up your characters in a third Spider-Man outing. I don't necessarily know what the rest of the Sinister Six is going to be, but clearly that's what they're ganging up for, and I just think it's really brilliant. It's making everything Marvel worthwhile. And yeah, in Feige, I trust. So if you're out there and you think Tom Holland deserves better, you're wrong. He's getting everything a kid would want on Christmas. All his friends are gathering up, and they're all just going to have a really great party. And sorry that you're not included.
You're going to be there for the party once it comes out.
Yeah,
if you are one of those people, you're going to be there for the party when it comes, and it's going to be a great party.
This only helps out Sony too. I mean, it's great that they're willing to play ball in this way because they understand kind of without Marvel, without Feige, they wouldn't have their biggest movie ever, which is still Far From Home, crossing the $1 billion mark. No Sony movie had done that prior to Far From Home.
Mm-hmm.
So this is only helping their branding. And even though Disney doesn't make nearly as much on the Spider-Man movies, look at all the merch opportunities. My God, they get all the profits from the merch. The deal hasn't that part of the deal hasn't changed. So, yeah, it was a big week for pop culture. Let me tell you.